to catch up. All right. Welcome to The Real with the Smiths. I am Nadine, and this is husband.
Hello, Jason. And I'm talking. So, today we are talking about what the expectation may be for some of you. And the ones we're talking to about expectation are mainly people that are not married, people that are looking to get married. Expectation is also for those that are married. And what they expected coming into marriage. And then we're talking about the reality, which is more so for those that are married, like myself and my wife, those that have been married much longer than we have been. You have more of maybe a reality. And that's not to say that people who have expectations of marriage and some of the expectations that they hold are not true or accurate or will become reality or be reality. It's just sometimes our heads can be in the clouds coming into marriage thinking it will be one thing versus another. My wife corrected me about Lifetime movies the last time, so I won't say it's what's painted on Lifetime movies, but we can say what's painted in Disney movies maybe as to what to expect. So I know for me, and talking about expectations versus reality, we'll talk about some of the things we've learned since being married. One of the biggest things for me has been how much work and sacrifice and dedication marriage is. It's not something that you can just go into and like, hey, I'm married now. And now years later, I'm married now. And, you just wake up every day and it's just a great marriage. It actually requires you to put in some work. It requires you to put in time, requires you to put in some dedication. And I think that I didn't understand how much of it was required, how much of it continues to be required, and how much of it I have yet to scratch the surface of to put in that time. So that's one of the things that I learned.
Yeah, and as husbands say about the Disney movies and a lot of movies, a lot of romantic movies paint a picture where it's happy ever after. And once you get married, everything just start working out and everything is perfect. And yeah, we're here to tell you that that is not true, because whatever the problem is or the issues that you go into a marriage with is still going to be there. So say for instance, you go into a marriage and you're selfish, selfish as in it's just about yourself, and like you don't you don't want to put anyone else before you. You have that attitude. When you go into a marriage, you have a wife or a husband, you have a spouse, and you can't bring that into your marriage, because now it's not only your spouse, it's you. So you cannot think about, oh, it's just me, everything is about me, my world, my world, my world. It's not only your world, it's both of you guys' world, and you have to think about the next person and everything you do. So for instance, if you're used to spending, let's say that, and spending a lot and
I'm just smiling with the nice people at home.
And spending a lot and never have to consult anyone, because it's your money and you work for it, so you're spending it, right? When you go into a marriage, you cannot have the same attitude. Yes, you work for it. Yes, it's your money, but now you're one, and you have to think of it as, okay, if I spend this amount of money, it's going to affect my spouse, and my spouse will not agree with it. So yeah, I'm here to tell you that you have to consult your spouse. It's your money, you work for it, but it's not like that after you get married. It's our money, and it's good to learn that from now, so when you go into a marriage, that you don't have that selfish attitude and think, oh, it's me, and it's just my world. Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously that last example was completely and purely hypothetical. It doesn't relate to anyone in this room here. Gentlemen, I would advise you to have a very clear understanding and conversation about what our money really entails and what it means
Facts.
for it to be our money.
Right, true. Because, reality is, and we know that his money is my money, my money is my money. So, hey.
So have a very detailed conversation prior to getting married about what the understanding of money is. All jokes aside, so I have a favorite, or one of my favorite gospel rappers that I used to listen to and still do when I can, named Flame, who has a song called Money, and I think his lyrics to the song really do encompass this the best way. And he says, if you're insecure poor, you'll be insecure rich.
Wow.
If you think
Wow.
you're raw rich, if you think you're raw poor, you're going to think you're raw rich. And it's the same thing with marriage. If you go in being one thing, if you don't put in work, if you don't pray,
Yeah,
you're
absolutely.
going to be the same way. And I think, and I'm going to talk to the young ladies for a second. I know we did that the last video,
Yeah.
and we kind of focused there. But I'm going to come back to y'all. I'm going to come visit y'all. I'll come down your aisle one more time. I'm going to tell you to turn to your neighbor. But in all seriousness, I find that a lot of young ladies, particularly in the society we live in now, and a lot of it may be because of these what I call chick flicks or romantic films,
Right.
showing the giant weddings, and now social media, everyone is on relationship goals, and
Right.
everyone wants to show their boo, and is just so quick to want what that appears to be that you think that that's where it ends, or maybe they go into marriage just thinking it's that,
Right.
and not
Right.
understanding
Right.
that marriage, like I said previously, is work.
Yeah.
It's some people go into it just for what marriage can be.
Right.
It's an opportunity to not be alone anymore. It's an opportunity to not have to go to the movies by myself, or go out to dinner. I'll always have somebody there, or I'll always have somebody to take the pictures that I want, because I just want to be so fabulous and have somebody taking pictures for me. And so people will get into marriage and think that that's all it is, and it's not those things. I'm not throwing shade at anybody.
So you're not throwing shades at me?
Sweetie, give me a kiss. Not at all. So there's that piece, and I'm really just trying to caution people out there, because after the marriage is great. The marriage is great. It's a great time. We talked about our honeymoon a few episodes ago. All of that stuff is great.
Right.
But when all of that ceases and that honeymoon phase kind of blows over, now you're looking at somebody in the face, and you've got to build a relationship for the rest of your life, because it didn't, just because you got to the point of agreeing to marry each other doesn't mean that it's now over. You now have to build from that point.
Right. Absolutely. And marriage is sacrifice, would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah, marriage is sacrifice, and you have to learn how to sacrifice in your marriage, because man, I want to say it's a lot of sacrificing. It's a lot of sacrificing. And if you don't deny yourself, I'm going to use that word. If you don't deny yourself, as the Bible said, we have to deny ourselves daily. If you don't deny yourself, you will be a monster in your marriage, because you will get up every day and want to argue and bring that into marriage, the arguments in the marriage, and again, like, not putting your husband first, or your wife first. You have to sacrifice yourself to make your marriage work. And not only sacrificing yourself to make your marriage work, like, you have people around you, like your friends, and even family members. You have to make those sacrifices, not to always be around them, and stay away from a lot of the drama that we all know we all have in our families, everyone. And you have to sacrifice that. And I can say, for me, I actually keep my husband out of my family. You know, I protect him out of my family drama. Another thing I will say about sacrificing, you have to sacrifice who is right and who is wrong in a marriage. You really do, because listen, I know for me personally, I believe in my mind that I'm always right. And within my marriage, I have to know that that is not true. I am not always right. And that's a big sacrifice. Oh, another thing, listen, y'all, gotta sacrifice the covers. You have to sacrifice the covers.
I'm waiting for when those covers are going to get sacrificed. But okay.
That's a huge sacrifice in the bed and the sharing of the bed. I'm laughing, but it is so true. The bed cannot be big enough for both of you guys. You have to sacrifice that and learn that. Listen, it sounds very funny right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is so true. And
absolutely.
That is a big sacrifice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that is all true. And one thing you said that I think I want to capitalize on is realizing that you can't be just for yourself anymore. And not just solely as a selfish means, but also marriage is not dating anymore. And I think that there needs to be an understanding of a large distinction. So where in dating you spend a good amount of time with the other person, and I think everyone's idea of what a good amount of time is varies, but it's still not all the time with another person. And when you go to marriage, it changes, you know. So those little times where you're not with the other person in the dating stage, and, you know, you can do whatever you want, hang out with your boys as long as you want, talk on the phone to whoever you want. Those are things you have to become more considerate about when you're with someone else. And I'm not throwing any shade. She can talk on the phone all day with whoever she wants, and I really I don't care. But even things like me, and I know the peanut gallery is about to jump in on this one. But in my spare time, I like to, you know, be on social media. I like to watch my NBA highlights. I like to play games on my phone. So a lot of times I'm on my phone. And those are things that were fine when I was just dating my wife, because she wouldn't be there to see that. Now I'm with her all the time. So there's no off switch in marriage, if that makes sense. Like when you're dating, there's an off. I'm not with them anymore. I can do what I want. You know, you can take off the makeup and take off the wig, so to speak. That stuff doesn't happen. That kind of stuff. There's no more chances for that when you're married, and I think people need to understand that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, what you said, is patterns. It's very easy to fall into patterns in marriage. And if you don't if you have good patterns, it's great. If you have bad patterns and you establish them early, it can be harder to fight out of them. And so it takes a little bit more work. It takes more intentionality to fight out of those. And you have to be aware of that. So like Babe was saying, you can just, you know, wake up and you chose evil today. You know, you just wanted to be angry. Not that she does.
No.
I do, but she doesn't choose that. But yeah, that can become a pattern. And it could be something as simple as I get up, you know, I kiss her on the forehead and I go and do my business. That just becomes a thing. But then there are other things where now we're working from home. And, you know, I tend to work after the bell sometimes. And before you know it, it could be a 1-day thing. It becomes a 2-day thing, a 3-day thing. And then before I know it, maybe I'm not spending the time with her to watch a movie or cuddle or whatever the case is. And then that just becomes a pattern. And it may not be a problem at first. No one may even acknowledge that that's a pattern. But eventually, at some point, you look back and you start to be like, wait, I'm not spending as much time with this person. We're not doing as much as we used to do. So those are things you need to be aware of. And that's probably the last thing I'll say on this topic, unless you cue me with something else that makes me want to say something else.
Well, something about marriage that I have learned is teamwork. Yeah, teamwork. We hear that so much in the job industry, and you know, say you need teamwork, and I believe that marriage is definitely a teamwork kind of thing. Like I can't be pulling left and my husband is pulling right. It's not going to work. Like, we have to come together. Like, sitting down, making this video for you guys, we honestly don't really discuss much or what we're going to say. We just come on here and we speak from our heart. Like we said, it's all about keeping it real. But what we do know is that we want to be one with whatever we talk about, and we want it to be a teamwork, because if we're not one doing this, then you guys are not going to receive it well. So teamwork is a big part of the marriage. And I have also learned in my marriage is that I have to cover my husband and cover him by praying for him, and the things them that, and no shade to any guys, but I believe as women is something that we have. What is it? Six sense, five sense? We have about eight.
18. 18.
We have about eight, and we pick things up, and we just feel that. So whenever I do, I always cover my husband and I pray for him. And, just because I believe in turn, when I pray for my husband, for me, that's also covering me as well. And as a wife, I'm going to tell you, I learned that so much more in my marriage. I knew about that, but once I got married, man, it became real. It became really real, where I'm like, okay, I really have to cover my husband. In his sleep, I'm like laying hands on him, praying for him, because what I'm seeing, or I'm dreaming, or I'm sensing, my husband is knocked out. Listen, 2 minutes, not even. As soon as as soon as he lay his head on the bed, he is gone. And I'm up probably praying, or, talking to God, or watching a movie, and, something will drop in my spirit, and then I'm laying hands praying for my husband. And that is more in a marriage. I'm going to tell you, that is like exceed in a marriage, because again, like I said before, praying for my husband and covering my husband, I benefit from all of that. So whatever it is that I give out to my husband, in the spirit, I receive it right back from him, because we're one. So that's a big thing. Like, teamwork and covering your husband, that's a really, really big thing. And I have learned that in my marriage, right, sweetie? Yeah.
I think the only other thing I wanted to say, and it came to my mind while you were talking, because this is The Real with the Smiths, but I'm not going to harp on it. I'm not going to stay here long. If you want to hear more about it, maybe we'll do another video on it. Or if we ever get past this pandemic thing, y'all can book us to come to your local church, your local library, your local whatever. We'll come and we'll have a very candid and open conversation with you. But we can't talk about this subject and not address this, especially on a channel where we're saying we're real.
Amen.
The other thing that does not go away, or is an expectation, maybe a false expectation coming in, other people will still look at you. And you may even look at other people. You've got to know that you're married to who you're married to.
Right.
You're not looking at the other side. The ring doesn't scare away everyone. No. The ring is actually an invitation to some people to come knocking at your door, like, hey, look at me. So we couldn't talk about this topic and not address that. So some of you are thinking, oh, well, once I have my person, I won't have to worry about maybe being promiscuous or looking at multiple people, or not necessarily. So I didn't want us to close this out without saying that.
Yeah. Wow. That's a big one. And man, that is so true. Like, I'm not the jealous type when it comes to my husband looking at someone, because I would be like, babe, that girl is fine, isn't she? I would say something like that. A beautiful woman is just a beautiful woman. And I don't mind if my husband says someone is beautiful, because it is the truth. So I'm not jealous in that area at all. But you do have some females and male that throw themselves, and you have to be like, listen, you see this? But again, like husband said, they don't care. So again, in your marriage, please expect that. And that's something that we learned
Mm-hmm.
like early on in our marriage. So that's something it doesn't change. That just don't change.
It may never change.
And it may never change. Yeah, so we you're right, sweetie. We definitely
Yeah.
had to
And
say that.
especially if you're in, and this is no shade to anyone who is not confessing Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior,
Yeah.
but especially if you're in a godly relationship, as long as the devil's
Yeah.
around, there's always going to
Facts.
be that. You know, we've seen so many
Facts.
times in the news, God help these pastors, these
Man.
artists, these musicians. I pray for these people all the
Yes.
time because
Yes.
it's a target for them, and
It
it's
is.
not always about them. It's a lot of times about their following, and to give the world a chance to say, oh, see, they're slipping, they're messing up, they had an
Right,
extramarital
right,
affair, whatever.
right,
So
man.
we're not going to get into it too deep because I said we're not
Yeah,
going to touch it, and we
too
probably have
much.
said a lot
Well,
in this
I
video
think what
too.
we said, we said.
But yeah, as long as
Right.
there's that, there's going to be, that will always be knocking at your door.
Yeah,
Always.
fact. One last thing, and sweetie, I do want you to chime in on this, because I think this is big. So, whew, and chime in, but not too much. We're not, this one we can't talk to too much because they may flag us on YouTube. But listen, sex and marriage is, I have learned that it's not the picture that is painted out there, right? It's not what you believe it is. Sex and marriage, you have to be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, physically ready, right? All in one. It's not just, oh, I'm going to jump in. It's not like that when you're married. Listen, I don't know what it is, but I have learned that within my marriage. When you're not married, I'm pretty sure it's more of a physical thing. It's more of a physical thing. But when you're married, all of that play a big part of it. All of that. Like you have to be on all those levels to be able to experience sex in such a spiritual way, because sex, it was created by God and it is a spiritual thing. So I just want to let you guys know that I have learned that within my marriage and I did not know. So that's an expectation that I know what you guys think. 5 days a week. A lot of you guys may think that, yeah, when I get married, it's going to be on it. It is on and popping, but you have to be on that level, on all those levels for it to be on and popping.
I'll say what she said, and I agree. I'm not going to even put too much into it. Everything she said is right, and I think it will even take some more work, because you have to be all of those things.
Right.
It's not always gonna. You get very used to, and I mean that in a non-derogatory way, to the person you're with.
Right.
So you know, like when their time is, when they're ready, you know, that kind of stuff, as opposed to before you're married. And if you're out there having sex before marriage, it is a sin. But like she said, it may all just be physical. And you're just like, oh, you just get with someone to get with someone.
Right.
But when it's the same person, you know, there's a different kind of rhythm and stuff like that. It's not just like, I want you because I've never had you. I think that's what drives a lot of the sexual stuff that's going on out in the world now.
A lot of lust.
It's a lot of lust.
Yeah,
and this is your partner. You know, it becomes more intimate and more, you know, catering to them and catering to you kind of a deal. So I'll leave it at that.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, we have learned a lot thus far, and I'm pretty sure we're probably going to come back to you guys with a part 2, because trust me, almost 3 years of being married to this wonderful man, and I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't want to be married to anyone else. He is great, and I am happy that I'm doing life with him. And I am working hard at this, because husband said before that marriage is all about working, and it is hard work. And let no one tell you any different. Listen, as believers, we know, like you said, the devil is out to get a godly marriage, and so your work is twice as much as a regular marriage. So he's coming and he's attacking. So you always have to put in that work. You always have to be praying and fasting over your household, over your husband, like all the time. Like, you cannot give it a rest. I'm going to tell you straight up, you can't give it a rest, because as soon as you do, that's when the enemy comes in and try to take what's not his. But we not letting that happen. No, we not.
Amen. And with that said, we're going to leave you all. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss the video. I have run into a couple of people that said they only seen the first video. When you search for The Real with the Smiths, you're going to see a circle with a picture inside of it, an icon with our picture. Hit that and the rest of the videos will come down. Because we're newer to YouTube, you're not going to just see a bunch of our videos drop out like that. All right? So that's how you can make sure that you get us.
Great. One last thing. Thank you so much for subscribing to us. And I want to say welcome to all our new subscribers. We love you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you for supporting us. God bless you.
Take it easy, y'all.